The countdown to the election is down to 2 days. Ahead on Face the State, millions of Ohioans have already voted early, but another 4 million or so could cast ballots on Tuesday. We're talking with Secretary of State Frank LaRose about keeping the election secure and the key things to keep in mind as you head to the polls. Also, will we know Tuesday night who our next president will be? Political experts warn declaring a winner could take some time. We're looking at the factors that could delay calling this very tight race. Plus, COTA is asking Central Ohio voters to raise the sales tax to help pay for a multi-billion-dollar expansion of public transit. We look at what it would pay for, and a finance professor explains what it could cost you. Thanks for joining us for Face the State. I'm Doug Petcash. We are now just 2 days away from Election Day. We'll know Tuesday night or maybe Wednesday morning or a little later who our next president will be. Will it be former President Donald Trump or Vice President Kamala Harris? Will our senator be incumbent Democrat Sherrod Brown or Republican businessman Bernie Moreno? All of our seats in the U.S. House are also up for a vote as well. Voters across the state are also deciding Issue 1, the proposed constitutional amendment regarding who will draw our political maps, citizens or politicians. So many important races and issues, bonds and levies are drawing voters to the polls this year. And voter turnout numbers are showing that. More than a quarter of Ohio's 8 million registered voters have already voted, either by mail-in absentee ballot or in person at one of the 88 boards of elections around the state. Lines at the Franklin County Board of Elections have been consistently long, but voters tell us the lines move quickly and poll workers are very efficient and friendly. You still have time to vote in person if you want. The Board of Elections offices are open today from 1 to 5 p.m. And if you have an absentee ballot, you have to get it postmarked by tomorrow. As you see here, about 2,047,000 Ohioans have voted early as of early Friday morning. So these numbers are bigger by now. Broken down by party, more than 1 million unaffiliated voters have cast ballots, more than 600,000 Republicans have voted, and just under 400,000 Democrats. The largest age group of early voters by far is 65 and older, with more than 900,000 ballots cast. Joining me now to talk about the big things to know before Election Day and other key election issues is Secretary of State Frank LaRose. Sir, thanks for being here today.
Thank you, Doug. As you can see, early voting's been going on for 4 weeks, and Ohioans are coming out to vote and having a really smooth experience with it, I'm proud to say, because of our dedicated elections officials.
Any surprises on how big the numbers have been for early voting?
No, not really. In fact, it's about what we would expect. In some counties, they've broken records. Others are just below the all-time record. But we knew that there was going to be a lot of turnout. There's going to be a lot of turnout on Election Day as well. That's a good thing. Yeah,
make sure you give yourself time on Tuesday if you're voting, right? So have you heard any of any major voting issues or concerns that have come up, whether it's with early voting or prepping for the big day on Tuesday?
Not major issues, but we work through things. A vendor error where some vendor was behind on getting ballots printed, or a mistake that had been made by a poll worker that gets rectified. But really, all in all, things are going quite smoothly. Again, it's because of the prep work we do ahead of time. You've heard my saying, we sweat in training so we don't bleed in battle. That's an old Army saying. We do the work ahead of time to make sure that we're ready, that our boards of elections have the logistics and the training and the personnel in place. And it's showing. Ohio knows how to run elections. We do it very well. We really are the gold standard for the nation.
As I mentioned, early voting today still from 1 to 5. Last opportunity for people to get out there. No early voting tomorrow. Now, I understand there used to be on Monday, but there isn't anymore. Why not?
Just a couple years ago, and it was the bipartisan elections officials that had said, guys, we need that day to prepare for Tuesday. So Ohio has kept the same number of early voting hours. It's a win-win for the voters and for the elections officials. We've created more evening and weekend hours. That's a good thing. We're one of only 5 states in the country that has Sunday early voting, and so take advantage of that this afternoon. You may see lines because procrastination is a real thing. Some folks wait till the last minute, but if you want to get out and do early voting, today's the last day to do that. And then, of course, the elections officials have tomorrow to make sure everything's ready for the big day on Tuesday.
And what's the point you really want to emphasize for folks who may still have an absentee ballot at home?
Yeah, if it's sitting on your kitchen cabinet, sitting on your dashboard of your car, you've got to get it mailed in. Tomorrow's the last day. It's got to be postmarked by tomorrow, or you can bring it down to the Board of Elections. Most of them have a drop box there. You can just drive up. You can only bring your own ballot to the drop box. If you're bringing it for a family member or a disabled Ohioan, you just have to go take it to the elections officials. But a lot of convenient ways. Don't leave it sitting there. We know that we've got a couple 100,000 that are still out there, either in the mail or sitting on somebody's kitchen counter. So get it in.
I know that we talked with the League of Women Voters a couple days ago about common questions from voters, and the big one, the top of their list, was the voter ID requirements, because Ohio did change the voter ID requirements a few years ago, I think in 2021. What do people need to bring with them? And we have a graphic that we can put up as you talk about this.
For most of us, we're accustomed to this. 98% of voters, going back decades, have brought their state ID or their driver's license. There was always a small number that would use the alternative forms. Those alternative forms, such as a pay stub or a utility bill, you can't use
do that
those
anymore. Yep.
It's got to be a government-issued photo ID. For most of us, again, that's a state ID or a driver's license. It can't be expired. It's got to be a current state ID or driver's license. For folks like me, it could be a military ID, a passport. There's a full list on our website, and I know that you're going to share it with the viewers as well. But in addition to that ID, bring a smile. The reason I say that is these poll workers are your neighbors, half Democrats, half Republicans, all patriots working hard, and we're just not going to tolerate anybody being unkind or uncivil to our poll workers. Thankfully, that hasn't been a problem so far.
You know, we've received questions. I know elections officials have received questions. Your office has certainly received questions about what is allowed and not allowed to be worn inside a polling location. Your office actually just put out some revised guidance on this. We have another graphic explaining the three main points. Really, this boils down to someone can't go into a polling location with the name of a political party, candidate, or support or opposition to an issue, right?
Yeah, and let's just use some common sense about this, folks. The law says you can't campaign inside a polling location. Let's not make this a distraction. We have a responsibility to uphold the law, and it's been the law in Ohio for decades. We also have a responsibility to maintain an orderly and a civil environment inside those polling locations. So if somebody comes in wearing their Vote for Candidate X shirt, they're going to ask, the poll workers are going to ask that individual, would you turn it inside out, or would you put a jacket on over it, because they're required to do that by law. But listen, nobody's turned away. Nobody is going to be denied the ability to vote. If they insist on wearing that shirt, then they're just going to vote and get on their way. What we're also not going to do is engage in anybody's social media circus. People come in filming something and trying to look for a conflict. We're not interested in that. You're going to cast your vote and you're going to be on your way. But common sense is you're not allowed to campaign inside a polling location. So
yeah, and I also understand the guidance kind of talked about slogans as well, where a slogan, as long as it doesn't have the name of the party, the name of the candidate, or the support or opposition to an issue, is okay as well.
Again, this can become a big distraction, and so we're not looking to let that happen. There are people that have overinterpreted this in the past and said, for example, if you're wearing your high school team mascot, that's expressing support for the team or for the school
levy or something.
The school levy or what have you. So again, this could get ridiculous. Now there's a thing where the Trump campaign has been wearing reflective vests because of the comment by President Biden. So are we going to tell people they can't do that? Absolutely not. Listen, if it says a candidate's name, if it says vote for or support this candidate, then we're going to ask you not to wear it. But other things, we're not going to be the clothing police.
What else, or what is in place now to make sure that this election is secure, accurate, and fair?
Ohio leads the nation in this. It starts with the people. It always does. It's the 35,000 Republican and Democratic poll workers that are trained, dedicated. They take an oath to do this work, and they take this work very seriously. That's why I say treat them with respect when you come to their polling location, your polling location on Election Day. It goes on to things like voter list maintenance. We take deceased voters off the rolls. We make sure only American citizens are on the rolls. We check IDs. We have a bipartisan oversight of every part of the process, and we audit the results. Every vote in Ohio is on paper. Whether you fill in an oval or touch a screen, Every vote in Ohio is on paper, and that gives us the chance to audit that election. We've had an accuracy rate above 99%, 99.98 was the accuracy rate the last time we had a presidential election. Ohioans can be proud of the way we run elections, and we'll give you those results on election night.
You mentioned the checking for citizenship. The poll workers have been trained to do that this
Correct.
year. I believe the ACLU pushed back on that and
Yes.
challenged that in court, saying that it could disenfranchise or be discriminatory against naturalized citizens. Where does that stand, and what's your response to it?
Well, thankfully, they lost that ridiculous lawsuit. I think most people recognize that that's not common sense. When someone shows up with an ID card that says non-citizen on it, we're going to make them present additional proof that they're maybe have taken the oath, they've become a naturalized citizen. That's just common sense. Of course, we work to make sure that non-citizens never end up on the voter rolls, but if your ID card says non-citizen, we're going to ask you for some additional information, and you're going to have to show proof of citizenship before
if they
you can
bring
vote.
their naturalization papers with them,
Absolutely.
that kind
And by
of
the way,
thing.
months ago, we sent letters to recently naturalized saying you should update your driver's license so that you have the U.S. citizen driver's license or state ID and not the non-citizen version of it.
So we talked also, just real quick, the voting machines
Yeah.
themselves are, people hear about maybe this could be hacked. They're never connected to the internet.
Never
right?
connected, strictly air-gapped, no Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, LAN connection, modem, nothing that connects it to the outside world. That's why, though, we're able to give you that rapid result on election night, is we use electronic tabulation to give you that result, but then we go back and count the paper. So we don't just have electronic or just paper. We have both in parallel, and the two have to reconcile.
We talked about that type of voting security, but what about the actual physical security?
Yeah.
People can get emotional
Yes.
on election days. What's in place at polling locations to make sure people feel safe?
Yeah, so this is, again, something that we've been working on for really well over a year, working with local, state, and federal law enforcement officials to make sure that not only are we ready to respond, but we're ready to prevent things from happening by monitoring trends on social media. Some people may make a threat or whatever else. We take all those kind of things seriously. I'm happy to say that there haven't been anything that has materialized here in Ohio, but we do keep an eye on this. Of course, we work closely with county sheriffs, city police, and state law enforcement as well, and we monitor these situations.
If someone is in line by 7:30, and maybe that line's an hour long, will they get to vote?
Absolutely. Nobody's turned away from a polling location. As long as you're there by 7:30, you will get to vote. What they're instructed to do is to put a poll worker at the end of the line at 7:30 so people can't join at 7:35, 7:36, that kind of thing. But don't delay. Get out there and vote. Don't wait till the last minute.
So do you have, what's in place when issues come up on election
Yeah.
night for your office? How do you deal with, call them crises if you will, but incidents that happen
Sure.
that you need to deal with quickly?
And there are hundreds of little things that come up, from a power outage to a fire alarm going off at a building, whatever else. We've built, probably from my military background, what would we call our command center, where we, in a linear fashion, we receive information from phone calls, social media, from the conventional media. It comes from all different sources. We triage that information. We act on it with the subject matter experts we have around the table. We can communicate that. On any given election, like I said, 200 to 300 different tickets come through that we can work through and make sure those problems are solved, because it's a no-fail mission. From 6:30 a.m. until 7:30 p.m., we have that opportunity to make sure every Ohioan gets their voice heard, and we're not going to be deterred from that. And so we react to these kind of things, and we're proactive about identifying evolving problems, whether they're systemic or whether it's a one-off, and making sure that we get those problems solved.
And shortly after 7:30, we'll start getting those initial results of the absentee and the early votes.
Yeah, and it's important to point that out. Early votes and absentee votes are the very first ballots counted. By 9 or so, we're going to be counting the election day votes. We're going to stay up late, brew a pot of coffee, and let Ohioans know those election day results on election
A
night.
lot of tight races out there, so it may be a little while for people to get those results they want so badly. All right. Secretary LaRose, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you,
Appreciate
Doug.
it today. All right. What I want to tell you about now is, if you want more information, all you have to do is text the word VOTE to 614-460-3345. We'll send you a link to our voter guide that includes a breakdown of the major races and issues on the ballot. Also, a lot of great information at voteohio.gov. That is the Secretary of State's website. Still ahead on Face the State, the waiting is the hardest part, and we may have to wait a little while to know for sure who our next president will be. Hear what political experts say could delay the calling of the race. Welcome back to Face the State. Political experts are warning that we might not know who the next president will be on election night. Experts say voters should take a deep breath and be prepared to wait a while for the race to be called. It all depends on how close the election is. And right now, it looks to be very close.
To win the election, former President Donald Trump and Vice President Kamala Harris need 270 Electoral College votes.
Every indication would suggest there's going to be some close states. There's going to be some closeness in the Electoral College, and it just takes some time.
The short answer is we're not sure when we'll know.
There are 7 key swing states: Arizona, Nevada, Georgia, North Carolina, and the experts say Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania are especially important.
If we know the results of those states and one candidate carries all 3, then I think we can predict pretty well what the national, who will be elected president.
But if the vote margins in those states are razor thin, it could be a long night or longer.
How close is the individual state? And then how close is the Electoral College, such that would that state tilt the whole outcome?
If the margin is just a few thousand votes, we may have to wait till all the votes come in a state.
In Pennsylvania and Wisconsin, that could take a while. In Ohio, boards of elections can process absentee ballots when they come in, so they can be counted as soon as the polls close on Election Day. Wisconsin and Pennsylvania cannot do that under their laws.
So that really puts them behind the ball. They're going through every absentee ballot that comes in and every signature starting on Election Day.
Niven and Asher say if it's a landslide, we'll know the winner early in the night. But recent presidential elections have been anything but landslides.
And with closer elections, you just need more of the vote to be finished and counted before you can know what happened.
It's much better to get it right than to get it done quickly.
If the vote is really close in a key state or two, that could lead to recounts, which take time. Also, if somehow the election ends in an electoral college tie of 269 to 269, the U.S. House of Representatives would have to decide who the next president is. Now, if Trump wins the election, Ohio U.S. Senator J.D. Vance becomes vice president. That means his Senate seat would open up. Governor Mike DeWine would then appoint a replacement for Vance. DeWine addressed that possibility this week.
If Donald Trump is elected, then we will start our process to look at people and talk with people. Some people have already contacted me. I've already met with some people at their request. But we'll get down to it after the election, if that's what happens.
And Governor DeWine did not say who has already contacted him. He says the timeline for choosing a successor would be when Vance resigns from his Senate seat and is sworn in as vice president. If the Trump-Vance ticket loses the presidential race, Vance would keep his seat in the Senate. A big issue on the ballot in Central Ohio is Issue 47, better known as the LinkUS levy for COTA. Voters in Franklin County and parts of Licking, Delaware, Union, and Fairfield will see it on their ballot on Tuesday. COTA is asking for a 0.5% sales tax increase that would bring in $8 billion of new revenue in the next 25 years. COTA says this is needed because our region's population is booming. It would modernize and expand the transportation system in Central Ohio. Viewers tell us the current state of public transit is a major obstacle for some people who can't get to their jobs. We talked to a woman who works at the Fortuity Call Center on West Broad Street, but she lives on the far east side of Columbus. Ryan Stewart says taking the bus to work takes her 90 minutes one way. She supports LinkUS because she says having consistent transportation will help her keep food on the table.
Well, with a 3-hour commute, if I can drop that down to even a 2-hour commute where it cuts 20 minutes to a half an hour off of my commute time, I'm for that. As a single parent, it'll get me home faster. It'll get me to work earlier so I don't have to necessarily leave as early in the morning. So again, as a parent, that's going to be key for me.
COTA's LinkUS plan would increase service by 45%, create new sidewalks, bike lanes, trails, and crosswalks, and create lines for a COTA bus rapid transit system. So how much would the proposed sales tax increase actually cost you? 10 TV's Angela Ann sat down with a finance professor from Columbus State Community College to break down what it means for your wallet.
So let's figure this out. If LinkUS passes, what does that estimated $8 billion over 25 years really look like for my wallet?
From your wallet, it's going to mean A small increase, I'll say relatively small compared to income, about $101 per person per year for 25 years. So it is a significant increase, but we also have significant increase in population that's causing some form of a change that will occur in the future.
And that's how you came up with these projected budget incomes that we just saw, that, you know, over that 25 years, with how many more people CODA will receive, what did you say, 300 some odd million dollars?
320 million per year average over that 25-year period of time. That would be the equivalent of 1.5 to 2 tanks of gas for a whole year. That would be on a per person budget. It could mean a 20% of 1 month's new car payment or 30% of a used car payment for the whole year. So it is an amount that is significant to some families, but when stretched out over a whole year, is it worth the benefit that we're receiving? And people visiting the city, they will see a small increase in the items that they buy. So anything that you pay sales tax for now, it would increase to pay for the increased service because we have a population increase going from 2.1 million to 3.1 million over the next 25 years. So that's why they're asking for this investment, to bring them on scale with other cities that have had similar growth.
That was Angela Ann reporting. We have much more of Angela's interview with The Economist on 10tv.com and our free streaming app, 10TV Plus. Still ahead on Face the State, answering common voter questions, the practical things to know before you go to make your election day choices. If you're voting early today between 1 and 5 or waiting until Tuesday, there are some things to keep in mind to make sure you have a smooth experience at your polling location. We wanted to answer some of the common questions voters have, so we reached out to the League of Women Voters of Metropolitan Columbus. They say among the top questions they get is, what are the voter identification requirements?
Ohio has different voter ID laws than they had during the last presidential election in 2020.
To cast your ballot, you now need one of these valid photo IDs: an Ohio driver's license, state of Ohio ID card, U.S. passport, or military ID. And make sure your driver's license is not expired. If it is, you'll have to vote a provisional ballot.
And then you'll have 4 extra days until Saturday to show the Board of Elections that you have updated your ID.
Voters also ask the League if they can get help while voting. The answer is yes, you can bring someone with you.
It could be maybe you're not comfortable reading the ballot yourself and you need help with that. It could be because of a disability.
They also get questions about what voters can and cannot wear to the polls. Greaser says patriotic clothing is fine, but campaigning inside is not allowed.
But you're not supposed to wear clothing that endorses particular candidates or particular issues.
Greaser also highly recommends you look at your sample ballot before going to vote.
I think a lot of voters go in on Election Day and they're surprised by how many things are on the ballot.
And you can find your sample ballot on the Secretary of State's website at voteohio.gov. That's where you can also find your polling location. Also, check out the voter guide on 10tv.com. It has links and information on all the big races. One other piece of advice Greaser gave: give yourself plenty of time to vote because the lines could be long. And again, today is the last day for early voting at Board of Elections offices around the state. It goes from 1 to 5. Another reminder, on election night, we will be covering all of the major races from the White House to local school levies. You can watch our election night special on 10TV Plus Tuesday night starting at 7:30 for live analysis, reports, and updates as your vote gets counted. Thank you for joining me this week for Face the State. I'm Doug Petcash. I'll see you next Sunday at 11:30 when we'll break down what happened in the big races and look ahead to what it all means. Have a great day.